What up, world? Waxvillain, Seattle, Washington. You already know what it is. Welcome to Waxvillain and Friends Fireside Chat. My brother Chris Lou riding shotgun. He just pulled up. Jimmy Scratch James of True Loves is on the way. Keep it locked, y'all. We'll kick things off real soon. Shout out to everybody on the line right now. True Loves 2021 release on Parkside Records, y'all. Snow White variant. The music in the background is Cooking Bag. That's Seattle stuff, 70s. Chris Lou in the building, we see it. Shout out to everybody on the line, man. Gonna kick things off real soon.
So, I know you've seen Weedle's Groove, right?
Son.
Yeah, I've got the DVD.
Son.
You know.
It's the only time I'm going to call you son. I'm from the 206.
Yeah, but I mean,
man.
you've seen the documentary,
I
I assume, like multiple times, just like the rest of us. So, yeah.
In my
Kenny
DNA,
G,
man.
baby. Kenny G, all the way.
How you doing?
I'm good.
I'm good?
I had a rough end of my day there, but I made it.
Now, are you outside or is that a background? Did
I'm
Instagram
outside.
drop backgrounds like Zoom?
Yeah.
You're outside. I was just being silly.
Those aren't your records, right? That's a backdrop.
It is a backdrop. It's not. Man, I told you shouldn't bring that up when I'm live like this. You just spoiled everything.
What's
Jimmy
happening?
Scratch
Sorry,
James in the building. What's good, brother?
Like, oh shoot! I'm trying to run around and get everything. Before like 6 o'clock, and I'm like, ooh.
I did that a couple times.
Same here.
I knew I had to be
it rolled
somewhere.
around so quick. I was like, it was 5:58, and I'm like, what? Oh shoot!
Yeah. My brother, how's
just
your day
running around
going?
here trying to get things done. Just was listening to the demo we did at Coal Mine.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I heard.
Have you not been paying attention?
Okay.
I'm everywhere, man.
So, Tim Carmen of the drummer from GA20 and Adam Stone from Daptone Records, Sugarman 3, played with Sharon Jones, all that. We went to the studio, met up with Terry Cole from Coal Mine, and recorded an album. We don't have a band name. We have not leaked the band name just yet.
Okay.
But we mixed it. We're listening to it. We haven't figured out band name. We did a photo shoot, all that stuff, you know. And so yeah, we'll have it's a trio thing coming out on Coal Mine. I don't know when though.
And so this was So this was a joint project. This wasn't like the Adam Scone trio or the Jimmy James trio. This was the three of you coming together to create something new.
Yeah. Basically, like coming from, three different styles and stuff, and then coming together. We kind of just went in it. Didn't actually not really know what was gonna happen. It's just kind of like we got off the flight. I was just like, what are we gonna do? And I don't know. Everybody started jamming, and so we're like, all right, we got some songs together. You know.
Nice.
Oh, shout out to Dominic. I see you.
So if you get stuck, shout out to Dom SE. If you get stuck on names, I think I got one.
Oh boy, here we go.
So this might be the $1 million one.
Yeah.
Are you ready? The Villains.
Villains.
Say it with me. The Villains.
I can't say nothing. I'll just we got some names. I'm not gonna say what they are though.
I see we got 15 on the line. If y'all are ready, I'll go ahead and kick things off.
Yep.
Y'all are good? Okay. I want to welcome everybody to Waxvillain and Friends Fireside Chat. Fireside Chats are similar to interviews. However, we take the time to do the research. We want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. More importantly, we want to support and strengthen what's already out there. We got a grip of questions tonight. We got show and tell, which I'm stoked for. For those that don't know, this is a Waxvillain and Friends Fireside Chat. Waxvillain and Friends is a series I started early in 2022. I was seeking opportunities like I always am to try and involve folks from the vinyl community. I thought it would be fantastic to bring on my brothers and sisters from the scene who might have the opportunity to connect with a musician in a different capacity virtually through the interviews. We've completed about 10, and tonight I'm joined by my good friend, Lugnut brand recording artist Chris Lujan, who's going to be co-hosting with me. I thought it would be fantastic to see the dynamics and conversation between Chris and Jimmy. Now, when it comes to our guest tonight, I want to start this off with a story. Usually I have a cool introduction, but I got a story to tell you, and Jimmy might remember some of this. So there I was. The year was 2021. The month was November. Jason Cressy had invited me to my very first True Love show at Numos in Seattle, Washington. So there I was standing outside in my all-black North Face, freezing, waiting for the side door to open. Jay Cressy comes out, and he pulls me in the back door. There's people. It's dark. Someone's putting a wristband on my thing. I'm getting stamped. The next thing I know, the music is playing. I'm standing front and center like I always do. I like to study and watch the musicians on stage. Now, there have been 2 times in my life where I have seen a musician stand right in front of me yet disappear on stage. One of them happens to be Duran Jones. The second one is our guest tonight. So as I stood there, I watched this man hold this instrument in his hands and creating all these sounds. And suddenly, like I said, while he was standing there in front of me, I knew that he really wasn't there. He had traveled somewhere else. And I was mesmerized watching this man that I had listened to on record, on streaming services for so long. I had never had the opportunity to see him in person. That night was one of the best shows that I had ever been to in my life, and it was Thanksgiving Eve, now that I recall. I didn't want that night to end. I didn't want to go home. It wasn't a concert. It felt like a big party in a backyard with friends. And that was the night that I realized I had just watched one of the greatest guitar players ever to grace the scene. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me welcome the one and only Mr. Jimmy
Thank you.
James. Welcome, brother.
Oh, shout out to Danny Boy and Lopez. I see you guys. Thank y'all.
So, Jimmy, I want to start with a real basic one. Please introduce yourself. Tell us your name, where you're from, and what you do with that instrument.
Jimmy James from Seattle, Washington, born and raised.
206, baby.
I'm just playing what I feel. You know, I'm still figuring it out, though.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Jimmy, it's fair to say that, you know, you were introduced to music at a very young age. Your sisters were involved with music. Your mother was a singer. You had connections to Jimi Hendrix within the family. When you reflect on the previous chapters of life, what are those 3 most important milestone moments that made you know that this is what you wanted to do in life?
Like, I'll start off with my mother. She was very instrumental in that. She always, like, I'll tell you all the story. Like, I remember first picking up the guitar. It was like, well, I was playing drums. Like, I was messing with my sister's drums at the time. And then all of a sudden, you know, just my interest was still guitar. But what made me pick it up actually was the night, like, my mother had listened to The Temptations. She loved The Temptations. And I first heard My Girl. And that did that. And I second that emotion, which, you know, sorry, I always keep this with me, so, you know. But anybody who knows that song, sorry, I should have had this plugged in a while back. but
take your time, brother.
Let's see. And I remember first when I heard it, the first line I heard in that song was, heard that line. And that did it for me, you know. And so that was one of the things, like, that got me into it. But my mom always said, if you want something bad enough, you'll work for it. And she got me my first acoustic guitar, which was like $20 or something, maybe 30. And the tuning pegs broke. So all I had was, like, I kept trying to tune it. I didn't know a thing about tuning. And it, like, all the strings broke. I only had 2 strings. So the only thing I was able to do is this. That's all I could do because I was trying to get into Chuck Berry a lot. So that's all I could play at the time. And then she got me a Harmony Rocket, which is very similar to this one. And then I got an Ibanez, but it didn't work out. And then the first guitar, the real guitar I got was a Fender Stratocaster. And that's what she gave me. But she was very influential in that, from just digging through all her records and stuff, which I still have. She still has her I still have her 8-tracks, which she never let go of those, and all her 45s. And so I would just pick through those records and just listen to them.
It's funny that you say that the Fender Stratocaster was your first real guitar.
Well, not my first. I should rephrase
like your name brand, like high end guitar.
Right. You know, at the time. But it's like at the same time, I still love that harmony because even though the neck was bold and everything else, it was that. But when I'd say real, I mean, what I should have said was more of like, it was the first brand new guitar I had that wasn't used.
Understood. Yeah. It's the only reason I mention it is because everyone now is after all the harmonies, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's why I mention it.
Oh, yeah.
So, Jimmy, just a quick follow-up. You had mentioned that one guitar was similar to the others. And for those out there that look at a guitar and say, that's a guitar, can you tell us what you mean by how it was similar, maybe how guitars are different? The harmony,
I've never really, that was the first hollow body guitar I ever had. And I love that guitar. You know what I mean? It had the mustache pickups. It just had, and I searched all over to find a guitar that was similar to that because it brought me back to a youth, and then one day I was at this place called Georgetown Music and this was sitting there and I kept looking around and again, I got the same feeling that I got when I got that Strat, and most guitarists, if they're out there, they know what I'm talking about, where it just calls your name and it's meant to be yours.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that
you see
about records.
And with this, it was just like, I saw this in the shop and I was just like, okay, I'm getting that same deja vu that I got with the Strat. And I looked around, I was like, nope, I got to pick this up. And as soon as I picked it up, I got that same happy feeling that I got when I picked up the Strat. Mm-hmm. And, and that's one thing I want to mention with that is that when you grab a guitar, forget the name brand, forget about all that. I mean, the price is going to be one thing, that's without question. But it should make you, no matter how bad your day is, when you pick it up, it makes you smile. It makes you create things that you thought about and the things you haven't thought about, yet. Yeah. And it just makes you want to just try different things all day long. And I picked this up, and the story behind this was it was actually found in a garbage can, and the luthier actually saved it before it went to the dump. Mm-hmm.
So what year was that?
Oh God. Let me see, was it 2012 or 2013? I think.
So already when the harmonies were kind of sought after, because there was a while there when they were kind of thought of as junk guitars, and then they became real popular, So 2012, they were already kind of sought after, I think,
Right. Yeah, and it's just like, and I remember seeing Tommy from the Dap Kings have them, and when I got this, I didn't even know what year it was. I didn't know what year this guitar was and so one day I was up in Bellingham and Budo's band was up, playing. And I saw Tommy, and I had this with me because I was sitting in with one of the other groups. And I said, man, you know what year this is? And he took a look at it. He's like, oh, this is a 64. I said, and however he did it, he knows how to look in it because I don't know a thing about, looking at serial numbers and model numbers and all that. But he knew what year it was, though.
Wow. That's incredible. That really is. So for the next question, when I was doing my research, I realized that you are truly a student of music, whether it's studying the back of album credits, on the covers, reading books. Now, we've only had a few people from Seattle here, and I know that you have a very rich and vibrant memory of what Seattle was like, specifically the music scene. Could you give us a lens into what the scene was like when you were growing up, or quite possibly stories that you heard from family members about the jazz scene, the soul and funk, and how rich Seattle really was back in the day?
When I was growing up, my sister was in a band called Tribal Therapy. And he used to play at like the Seattle Peace concerts and all that. And my mother would come and she'd take pictures and that was really when the grunge scene was just starting, you know. And of course I was too young to go anywhere, so I would just, you know, I would follow my sister to her band practice, especially during the summer when school was out. And, you know, like carry things, stuff like that. And there was a lot of that going on. And other people that I talked to, there was this older guy, and I can't remember his name, but we used to go see him at the nursing home. And he talked about Seattle back in the day. You know, he would talk about the days of where $5 would pay your rent, you know, for an apartment in those days. You know, you can buy food with 25 cents because Seattle was like considered at the time, he said, like the New York of the West Coast. You know, and he remembers the days of like the Jackson Street after hours, you know, like, you know, Ray Charles playing and like the rocking chair, you know, which is where Gatson School is now. And he told me a story once. He said he remembered, he said he was in the Central District. He said, I remember this kid who used to run around with a broomstick and he would just play it. He was just a wild kid. He got a little, you know, little acoustic guitar, and he would bang away from that, and he would run up and down the street playing it. And he said everybody called him Buster because that's just who he was, you know, because he loved he loved watching the show. And he told us, he said that crazy kid is gonna go somewhere someday. He's like, we call him Buster, but y'all know him as Jimi Hendrix. And speaking of Jimi Hendrix, as you were talking, now you were mentioning a close relationship with him. Now, my mother's cousin, her husband, because she moved up here from Texas. My mother would move a couple years later. And she went to Garfield High. She met her high school sweetheart, Robert Green. And they were in the same class with Jimi Hendrix because they're same age. Hendrix would have been 80 years old of last year. And he played in the first band. Jimi Hendrix played in his band called the Rocking Kings. Now, anybody Googles that, there's a picture of Jimi Hendrix playing a white Supro guitar with some members with him. One is named Lester Exano, I remember, at least what she told me. And you'll see the back of a guy's head playing piano. That's Robert Green. And she remembers, she remembers Jimi Hendrix real well. She said he was so charming, he was so shy. She's like, heck, I used to feed him half my sandwich because he was, you know, he was dirt poor, you know, as she told me. But she said he was a sweetheart, but that boy wanted to play guitar all day and all night and everything. And she still got recordings of him in her basement, and she's got recordings of my mother back in 67 or 68 playing at the Black and Tan, which anybody who's in Seattle, the Black and Tan is on 12th and Jackson, which is now a Chinese herbal store. But I got a picture of my mother in that era singing. She was about 22, 23. Mm-hmm. They were called, the group was called the Champels.
Wow.
Yep, and they used to back up certain artists when they would come into town. Like, it's like sometimes I didn't know this. My mom was real humble, so she wouldn't really talk about it. But like they would back up, like, you know, because certain groups would have pickup bands when they come into town. And so my mother did back up for Solomon Burke and Johnny Taylor.
Oh, nice.
That's incredible. Did they ever record anything to vinyl?
Know of, but I know that her cousin told me they used to cover this song, and I've been starting listening to it ever since, and I can hear where my mom would have sung this song. And there's a song called "The Whole World Is a Stage" by the Fantastic Four, and they used to cover that. And I found a picture of my mom wearing a peach dress with peach-colored flats, and they opened up for people like the Sweet Inspirations even, you know. And but they talked a lot about that they would sing across town. And funny thing was, I don't know if everybody knows, you know, Euro Thomas. Euro Thomas,
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
True Love's opened up for him and Eugene, and he talked about Seattle. Funny thing. And this is going to lead to my mom, which I'll keep it short, but we were talking about Seattle. He's like, yeah, I used to spend some time up there. And I said, when? He's like, during the mid-'60s to late 60s. I said, you did? Did you ever go to the Black and Tan? He's like, yeah. I said, so do you know a guy named Robert Green? He's like, of course I do. I know his wife. You know. I said, okay, that's my mom's cousin. She's like, yeah, they were in a group. There was this group called the Champels, as I remember. And I said, you do? He's like, yeah, I remember that, man. I remember this lead singer, and boy, was she fine, and she could sing. I said, that woman you're talking about is my mother. and he said, oh, boy, let me tell you the half of it. Boy, ooh, she looked good. Oh, I said, watch out now. That's my mother we're talking about. And so I told my mother about it. I said, Mom, do you remember that? And I said, he said, you were fine and everything. She's like, oh, stop. She started to blush. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know. And I said, oh, so it is, you know. And I saw some pictures of my mom before that, and it was funny seeing pictures of her. Because one time there was one picture I didn't recognize. I was like, Mom, I said, who's this fine little lady in the photo? She's like, boy, that's me. And I'm like, I said, well, dang, Mama, you were looking good. And I said, you were fine. Look at you. And she's like, oh, stop. I was good looking. One day I said, yes, you were. You still are, you know. And so I learned about, like, that era where it was, like, so many clubs to sing at, you know, and you just, and that's how you made your living. You didn't even have to leave Seattle to go anywhere. You know, it was just like, I mean, Robert Green used to play for, like, people like organist Dave Lewis, like, we're filling for him, you know, and people would come up here, you know, like Bobby Bland, and my mother's cousin mentioned that, said Bob Bland would come up here, my mom would get out in the middle of the floor, twist her heels off, and just cut a rug all day long. And, you know, Six Stadium, you know, like James Brown played, they said James Brown played up here every other month, you know. And it's crazy, you know. Wow. Six Stadium is where Lowe's Hardware and Garden on Rainier is now. And if that should have clipped Jimi Hendrix playing there, the last show in Seattle that he did before he passed, and two of my neighbors who have long since passed away, they were at that show. And they told me about that it was raining, which, you know, we know Seattle rains a lot. But that's a lot of stuff, you know. Sorry to go on so long, but that's the story I know about Seattle.
No, that was beautiful. I love capturing moments like that. I want to share something with you. So last year, I had interviewed a gentleman that goes by the name of Trey Lotz. And Trey was in a garage band in, like, the mid to early 60s. And he went to college in Utica. One of the things that he was a part of was kind of like the event team when they would bring in, you know, entertainment. And he talked about this story. It's actually documented on the interview. But he said there was this guy that we were watching in rehearsal. And he was real clean cut, but he was doing things on the guitar that were just mesmerizing. And I watched this guy for hours and hours. And finally, you know, at the end of the show, he asked somebody, he goes, who is that guy right there? He goes, oh, that's Jimi Hendrix. But it was before the Jimi Hendrix that everybody saw, you know, in the pictures with the outfits, and before he was really Jimi Hendrix, essentially. And I just thought it was so interesting to get an insight about Jimi Hendrix playing a different style of music, right? That we don't really see or hear too much about.
Yeah.
So now, for the next question, you know, there's an artistry to being a musician. You know, there's things that we hear as a fan. There's things that we see when we're watching musicians perform. But oftentimes what we don't really understand or have insights to is what you're experiencing as a musician. And I grabbed some quotes or some lines from the research I did. Maybe you can speak to some of these and elaborate. Your quote is saying, I just want to hear the guitar as it is. You say, the tone is in your fingers. And let's see, what was the last one there? That was the only two I had there. But could you elaborate on those? Because as someone who isn't a musician, I don't really understand what that means, but I think it might allow us to really connect closer to the music that you make.
And I mean, Chris, I'm sure you understand this as well because you play through it too. It's like when I first played, I didn't know a thing about distortion. I didn't know a thing about, you know, the effects pedals and all that. I just knew turning the amp up was the thing. And I like it's not that, and again, I'm not against pedals or whatnot. That, you know, that's to whomever it's for. But I liked when starting back in the day, it was just like I would just plug in, and I would be able to control the sounds that I heard, you know, and I just wanted to hear the sound like I heard it. Like again, hearing My Girl, you know, when I heard that and just hearing that line, you know, and how the guitar was just, you know, plugged in straight. You know, and just hearing that, sorry, I'm over here messing with stuff. But, you know, when I heard it, that I just wanted to hear that, you know. And again, I like when effects pedals are used, like, you know, when Hendrix using Unified, he owned it, you know. I could try it, but, you know, Hendrix owned that. So I just like to hear the guitar as it is and be able to control it with the fingers. And as far as like the tone is in your fingers, that is true. You know, it's like so many, like, give an example. You hear B.B. King. You know it's B.B. King. No matter what guitar he's going to play on, it's
one
going
note.
to sound like B.B. King. Right. You hear him just like that. You know, hear that, you know, that whole thing where he's like. That's a B.B. King sound. And you can pick him out of that. And what my mother stressed to me as a youngster was that people had a sound then. You knew a Motown record before the vocals hit. You knew it was a Motown record. Before a Stax song hit, before Otis Redding was singing, you know it was Stax. You know, you hear Chuck Berry, you hear that. You know it's Chuck Berry because everybody had an individual sound. And even Bootsy mentioned that too in the interview. I wish I could find it. But he said, it doesn't matter. You could be the baddest this, the baddest that, but what's your sound? What's your identity? That's what the thing was. And, thanks about the Brazilian flag. I got that in Brazil. But that was the thing, you know, is having a sound. You know, when you heard Aretha sing, you knew it was Aretha. You could have your eyes closed. You didn't have to, you could pick her out of a lineup. And knew that. And so that's the same thing with the tone with the fingers. You know, it's just like play what feels good to you, play what you feel 100% is you. You don't have, I mean, you could go different music styles, that's fine. Or you can be just with one, and that's fine too. But again, it's like I learned that from my elders. That's who I learned from.
I love that. I really love that. Is there anything you want to add on that?
I've noticed definitely there are times when you are pretty distorted. You know, when you pick up your Strat and you really have gone for it. So that's just the turning the amp up then, huh? No pedals.
Pretty much the amp or the drive channel, one of the two, you know, and stuff like that. But it's like, you know, my Strat, of course, it's over here in the corner, so it's hard to get out. But that guitar is my baby, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I've had that thing. I mean, you can see how much dirt is on the. I've had people joke about that. They're like, "Boy, there's so much dirt. You might need a tetanus shot after touching it." But again, I'm gonna quote the great James Jamerson: "The dirt keeps the funk." So if it works, hey, you know, and that's just what it is.
And you got that guitar new, so all of that dirt is from you, right?
Yeah, that's dirt that's probably been there since I was a freshman. Oh, speaking of True Loves, David McGraw, our drummer from the True Loves, is here.
Shout out to Dave McGraw. I remember Dave, he was playing the drums. He didn't have shoes on his feet. Yeah, he was in like a three-piece suit.
He's the boom bap of the band. Gotta love it.
I love that. Yeah, shout out to Dave. Yeah. So, Jimmy, a lot of us, you know, we know you from your work with DLO3, True Loves. We know about your session work and also the monster accolades through Hers album. Could you talk to us about the creative process and how you prepare for, say, doing True Love's music, DLO3, or maybe some session work? What kind of goes into that, and what's different from each of those lanes?
Like playing with the True Loves, it's more collaborative, you know? Somebody will kick it off. Usually, like, David will kick off a drum beat, and I'm like, what's that? And then hand lands on the door. Oh, okay, it might be, let's try that, you know? And then that works, you know? Because usually, like, for example, sometimes the music comes from funniest places, okay? Like, Mary Poppins, which David named it that one, because I can't come up with the name. He just came up with that one night. And I remember thinking of Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, right? And so it's like, boom, ba, whoop-a-dee, doo. That's right. So I said, what would it look like if the Oompa Loompas were like walking down the street in Harlem, you know, in a suit, you know, decked out, you know? What would it sound like if they were like strutting? What would it sound like? So I was like, so it would sound like this. You know what I mean? And that's what it sounded like to me, you know? And then everybody will come in and Bonds will hear something, or you know, Yvonne will hear something on the percussion, Brian will come in, you know, and it just happens, you know, and not really think of it too much, you know, just go with the flow. If it feels good, do it, you know. The same thing with the trio, you know, it was just like somebody come in, they'll want to play something, or you catch somebody on the groove and you're like, okay, let's try that. And it's like, okay, I don't know what the title of this tune is, but all right, we're going to have a song called Pull Your Pants Up, which of course was because I never had a belt, and so my pants would fall halfway down, bending over on the airplane. So, you know, crack shows. So, you know, so I'm like, oh, you know. You know what I mean? And stuff. Oh, somebody said did it again. Yep, I know about that. I love that one. And when it comes down to the studio, like working with Mario, he's the producer who we did that Her thing with. And it was actually just a sample that we did, you know, and he'd have keyboards and have something. He'll have a general idea. I'll come in, I might have a bass line, or he may have a bass line idea. I'll hear some, oh, it's the chords. And then all of a sudden, they took out this little line. And when you hear the song Slide, you know, that's what they took out, you know? And then they used that, you know, and then we did another tune, played the bass line for a tune. It was, again, a sample, and J. Cole used it for Punching the Clock.
Okay. Wow. Super great insights. I love that. We're at the midway point. If you're ready to kick off show and tell, I would love to see what good as you brought for us today.
A Strat is going to be tough for me to get out because I don't want to knock my thing over. But my Silvertone, you know, this is my baby. My Strat, people see it in the pictures, is the white one. That's like a 95, but that's the one I really dig into. Probably see it in the back. Hold on. Give me a second. And I'm wearing a belt this time, so therefore nothing will happen. This one is the telly that actually my friend Johnny Ritchie, Lindemood, who works for Fender, Custom Shop made this. It's actually a Jimmy James signature Telecaster that they made for me. And they brought it to, they brought it to me while I was doing the session for the Stone Cash Players album. So I was getting a double surprise because I was like, oh man, I'm playing for Dap Talk and getting this all at the same time. Must be my birthday, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, I could get into that whole thing. Because, you know, Steve Cropper, you know, that sort of thing. And we did Yeah, I always wanted to play that song by Johnny Taylor. That. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. What else?
Can I ask you about that guitar real quick?
What's that?
Can I ask you about that guitar real quick?
Sure.
So it's from the custom shop. Did you spec it out at all, or did they just present it to you?
They just presented it to me.
Ah, nice.
At first, I wasn't into Telecasters at first, but then I said, you know what? Why not? I like that sound, you know? And so they presented it to me and, you know, went with that and stuff. And what's the other one? Sorry, I got a string broke on this one, so you have to excuse me. This is the Jazz Master. This is one, I call this my stay-at-home guitar. I don't really bring this one out too much. Okay. What else? Sorry. And then here's the other one, Fender made, if I can even open up this case. Sorry. Again, I break strings and I need to replace them. But I'm still trying to learn how to tune this thing. But this is the Jimmy James signature Stratocaster that they made. And so
wow.
I'm still getting used to it. But I'm still used to my baby one, you know, my white Strat. So that's my baby.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things, you know, and then the little amp I'm playing through is a Tiplo Devices amplifier, battery powered. These are a must have if you want to go playing outside and there's no electricity or you're just doing it in a small thing. These things keep up. Trust me. So yeah, that sort of thing. And then that's all I got.
No, I love that. That was so cool to see the guitars and learn about the signature. I think that's super, super cool.
Well, first, let me do my little show and tell. So not only do I have this, but I have the OG Warhand.
Is that the OG?
Oh, you got the 100 out of 100 copies.
Yes. So I'll tell you how I came upon this real quick. Is I found out about the True Loves. You know, this album was already out. I actually thought it was only out digitally. I didn't realize it was on vinyl. I actually hit you up. You probably don't remember this. I hit you up. I sent you a DM saying, I would love to put this out on vinyl. What's up? And I think you sent me to the bass player or whatever. I didn't realize it was already on vinyl. So at the time, when I discovered that it already had been issued on vinyl, there was one copy on Discogs for $550.
Really?
Right? Yes.
It's been there for years.
And I think at that point, when I found out about you guys, I followed Warhand on Bandcamp, and they sent out a message that they had found like 3 or 5 of them in the warehouse or something, and they were going to put them up for sale at this certain time on this certain day. So you better believe I set my calendar, set an alarm and everything, and happened upon it. So, okay, so my turn to ask a question.
Okay.
So, Jimmy, you are very knowledgeable. I mean, you know so much about all of the old cats who played on the records, who did sessions, who played with who. So what drove you to want to know all of this stuff instead of just being like, oh, I like the music and I like to play the music, but you really have studied who played on what? Is this just part of who you are, or was there some draw that made you want to find
it was just part
out?
Of who I was, you know, because I was always interested in like what made the song what it is, you know. It's like, of course we know who the singers are,
right,
but who are the guys behind the scenes? Like, I'll give an example. I was listening to the song What's Happening, Brother by off of the Marvin Gaye What's Going On, and I was just like, who is the bassist in the back killing it on the bass over here? He's really just moving the whole thing. And I had to go and know about this stuff. And I was like, James Jamerson? I got to find out more about it, you know? And as a kid, I loved to read the backs of records. I always was interested in who the players were, you know? Because, like, you know, I've been a session player myself for many years. And I always want to know what these guys and what made them do what they did. What's the story behind these people? I want to know what they sounded like when they talked. What was their what was their inkling when they did it? Like, you know, hearing about Robert White, most people would know who he was, but then everybody hears My Girl, that's him, you know, and they even talk about it like, okay, Smokey, like doing the research on him. When they did My Girl, Smokey came to the table with it just going, I've got sunshine, C to F on a cloudy day. And that was it. And the band was like nope. Like, that's not what's happening. So Jamerson came up, boom, 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 boom. And it was like, Robert White was just like, I'll just play a C major pentatonic scale. Not knowing that was going to be the top 5 guitar line known around the world. He could think none of it, you know. He was just like, I'm just coming to work and just cutting a tune. He didn't think nothing of it.
Right.
And it became the top 5 guitar line known around the world. You got Purple Haze, you got all that. Son of a Preacher Man, same thing. Reggie Young, you know, he was just doing what it was. You know, of course, I would love to sat with these guys and had this conversation, and trust me, that would be an 8-hour conversation, pack a lunch.
Sure.
That's, you know, and I just love to know about these people. I want to know what made them tick, what inspired them to make these great songs. You know, like, what was the idea? What was the feeling they were going through? You know, like, or take another example. Happy Accident. Okay, Sam and Dave. They were doing the tune "Hold On, I'm Coming." Isaac Hayes and David Porter, and Isaac Hayes was at the piano playing, and he's like, and David Porter was in the bathroom.
Indeed.
He's like, man, he's like, I got this song, come on. And he's like,
hold on, I'm coming.
And that became the tune. It was on the toilet. It just said, hold on, I'm coming, and it became the song. And that, like, the happy accidents that happen, or what's going on? Marvin Gaye, the guys who are in the background singing are the Detroit Lions football team. Who's making all the noises saying the word brother, brother? That's the Detroit Lions football team. Most people don't know that.
See, you have all of this stuff. You need to write your own book at some point. I'm telling you, you got to get all of this out for everybody else. You know, you've done the research.
I just get excited about it because I love doing them stories, because I used to sit with friends. My friend Woogie, he's the same way. We could sit around, and again, he would talk about music. I could talk about music. My mother, and I'll bring her up, she used to tell us, she's like, my son is shy. Boy, if you get him talking about music, you better pack a lunch, because he's going to talk to you for hours into the morning. And the longest I ever did that with was a friend who I met, and we talked until the sun came up. That's just how it goes.
Got it.
Yeah. So just to follow up on that real quick, I can kind of relate to that, because I get really excited when I have these discoveries through talking in DMs or in just kind of like private, you know, videos. Is there a story that stands out to you, a discovery about something that's not printed anywhere, that you learned about through conversation or meeting musicians?
Wow. He's like, where would it? Ooh, there's a lot of them. I just don't know where I would start. I would say, like, again, the stories that I heard in Seattle, you know, like I'll give you an example. Yeah. My mother's group, when they opened up for the Sweet Inspirations, now, I never talked about this, but they opened up Sweet Inspirations one day, and they were covering one of their songs. And my mother told me, she's like, oh, and she remembers it was Sissy who came up to her and said, wow, you sing that better than we do, you know, and just stuff like that, hearing those stories, you know, knowing about, you know, hearing about, like, people at Garfield, you know, hearing about, like, you know, Ray Charles playing in town, you know, and stuff, and how people just all met together and dipped and dived back and forth, you know, and learned something, you know. Or one of my friends, he was a drummer. Elvin Jones taught him some stuff when he would come through town and tour and show him how to play certain things, you know. Who else? One of my mentors, Coleman Brown. used to take me under his wing when I was not of age and I couldn't get in the bars, but he would sneak me in, and I would sit in with the band. And his brother used to play for Motown in the LA scene, you know.
Wow.
And we just talk about those stories, you know, of what it was like for them, you know. And that's just like I used to say, gosh, if I was born in 1940, I could have experienced this stuff, but I could only experience it through them, you know, and what they say.
Yeah.
And I learned from my elders because what they always have said was, you know, listen, learn something, you know, pay attention, because you're next. Yeah. You know, you have to be able to keep this forward, keep this going. And one of the guys I knew from out here used to tell me as a young person, he's like, one thing you guys have to understand about music, and this was an older man, and I never talked about this one. He said, when you are playing music, you play music like you're having a conversation. Because if you start talking fast, he's doing that. Well, nobody understands what you're saying. But when you slow it down and you dot the I's across the T's and all that, well, then now it's a conversation. We're all understanding each other. It's a universal language. Maybe I speak English, but somebody else over here doesn't, and this other person doesn't. But if we play A minor, we're all going to know that's an A minor, regardless of what our language barrier is.
Right.
And know that when you're doing it, you're speaking to everyone, and they're speaking right back to you. You know? And
that's deep.
Now let me ask you this, because I went through a period of a good 5 years where I don't think I touched an instrument at all. And it was because I didn't have people to play the music I wanted to play with. Before this point, I was playing upright bass in restaurant situations, just me and a guitar player, same songs over and over and over, and I kind of got bored with it, and I took a break. And it wasn't until I discovered like the whole Daptone thing, you know, the Sugarman 3 and the Mighty Imperials, that I was like, oh, there are people doing this now, you know. And that's the point at which I was like, okay, I need to find some people to play with, you know, because it's happening now, you know. So did you ever go through a period where you didn't have people to play the music you wanted to play, you know, like, you know, were you stuck with like rock and roll guys or something like that, you know?
Well, honestly, it was off and on, because when I was I was in high school band. Now, most high school bands play jazz. Now, we couldn't read a lick, but we didn't want to play that. Like, nothing against it. I'm not knocking it. But us kids, like, I found friends who I still talk to. You know what we wanted to play? We wanted to play James Brown and Kool and the Gang.
Sure.
I still have a recording of us playing Hollywood Swinging and when I was like 15, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, and it was off and on of finding people. But half the time I would just play to myself.
Right.
You know, and play like I'm part of the band. Even though it was the record playing.
Oh, gotcha.
I wanted to play like I'm part of the band, you know? And, you know, I would find cats like that playing at the Sea Monster on a Friday night. You know, we got into playing like Marvin Whitney, Dyke and the Blazers, stuff like that. And then, you know,
wow, Dyke and the Blazers,
David, you know, like message him on Facebook Messenger, you know, and I was like, I didn't even know who he was at the time. He's like, hey, I'm just rehearsing down at this place down in Soto. You want to come along? I said, all right, I got nothing to do on a Sunday. Okay, why not? You know, that's how the True Loves got started. And we were into the same thing. It's like, oh, man, you ever heard this? Well, have you ever heard this? Oh, check this record out. Well, you heard this record? You ever heard Dee Dee Warwick? I'm like, Dee Dee Warwick? Of course. You know, that's Whitney Houston's aunt, of course. Da-da-da. You know, Sissy Houston related to Sissy. You know, Dionne Warwick, you know. And
so, sorry. So this band, your high school band. So you were in the high school band, I guess, yeah? Which was...
Blue Attitude was the name of the band.
What's that?
Blue Attitude was the name of the band.
So I assume it was a big band, right? Because that's like, you know. So did the instructor have you playing like R&B tunes? Or
yeah, we were playing like songs. I remember we played was like I remember we tried to play like, what were we playing? Boy, you taking me down memory lane with this one.
So it wasn't very different from like the Kashmir Stage Band then, yeah?
No, not really. really.
Okay.
Like, not really. Like, we would just like, I remember, let me see if I remember it. The first tune I remember, if I can still remember it, it was, we did Funky Town, and then we did a thing called Susie's Blues, which was original. And I remember all I had to do was play single string stuff because I didn't know chords then. So I was just like, that's what we did.
Was it a shuffle?
It wasn't a shuffle. It was just a straight ahead thing we did. And then what else did we do? And then the rhythm section did a song separate because we wanted to do something kind of funky. And let me see if I still remember how to play it. And I think it was F sharp if I remember. And it was going. And that's how, we did that stuff then, and we just listened to Funk Incorporated. We listened to Wilson Pickett. We were like Mustang Salad. We go all crazy for that one, and that's the stuff we were into, and still into that.
So I hear you say that back then you didn't know any chords, really, so you were doing single note stuff.
I was doing single note stuff, and I started to understand chords a little bit because I was just watching other guitar players.
So based on what I'm hearing, you're pretty much self-taught.
Pretty much, yeah. Just listening to records.
Okay. And at what point, see, I assume, you're saying like you're trying to play all of these licks that these other people are playing. Mm-hmm. At what point did you feel like, okay, instead of emulating them, I'm going to play my own stuff? Or was it always you were coming up with stuff?
It was a mixture of both. It was always trying to listen to a tune, and then like what I did does it give you, and then at the same time like, well, I want to learn how to do something. Like you hear certain things in your head, and you're like, oh, I'm still trying to figure out, how do I play that? Or I would just listen to records. Like I would listen to Bobby Bland, and I love Pat O'Hara. He going.
Right.
And so I would just hear stuff, and I'm like, oh, I hear, what I mean?
So a lot of learning off of the records. Then it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, the first song I really learned how to really play, like outside of like, I would start off with blues first, and then the first rhythm and blues song was again. Mustang Salad, and those are 12-bar blues and learning that, and I was big into that because I love anything. If Wilson Pickett, I can listen to that. And I still can listen to Mustang Salad over and over again and still just love that song, because it brings back memories.
Yeah. One last thing, I guess. I have to heap some praise on you. I know you're a humble guy, but my buddy Joe Bear Magnet, who you have met, was the guitar player for the MTET. At the point when the MTET was really playing a lot, Joe used to think, and he would state that like he thought Binky Griptite at the time was the guitar player in the scene that everyone was trying to play like. He thought like he was the tops. But now with Sharon's passing and Binky's kind of out of the Daptone world and kind of doing his like the blues thing, I would say that it's you now that everyone is trying to play like.
I'm
not kidding. I'm not kidding.
I'm still figuring that one out. Oh, that's a one.
Aren't we all? But I really think like you are the guitar player on the scene right now.
Oh man, I'm still like I see. And the thing is, I used to watch, like that was I used to watch like Tommy Brennan and watched, Binky Griptite, because every time they like the one song I would love to play was and of course I tried to one time ask Binky one time. I was like, I saw during the pandemic, I was like, Binky, give me some lessons, man. And he's like, man, are you serious? I said, yep. I said, how much will it cost? He's like, man, get out of here. And I'm like, come on, man, like, show me some stuff, dude. He's just like, dude, I hear I hear something about licks in your play.
He already knew. He knew you were on board.
But I was still trying to figure it out. I said, man, I'm still trying to figure this out. Like, hey, put me in a room with you and put me in a room with, like, Steve Cropper. Man, I'll be in heaven. I'm like, oh, I'm like, whoa, I'm going to learn this one, you know, that stuff, you know. I still, like, I watch other cats, man, and I like watching other people play. I like to see the wave that they create, you know. And it's like, I'm not thinking of the theory or anything, you know, I'm just hearing things, you know. I'm hearing the wave that they have, you know, because I know sometimes it's easy to be like, oh, the harmony and all that. But then again, it's only music theory. It's not music fact. So it's subjective, you know? And so it's like your A chord, A minor, is going to be different than my A minor. It's still A minor, but I might play it a different way than you would play it.
Yep.
But it's still A minor. It's just the tone chord is different. You know?
I mean, sometimes, like, let's use your A minor, for example. I'll be writing a song, and I'll be like, oh, this is an A minor. This A minor works, and then I'll think like, oh, let me play it in a different position, and it just sounds so wrong, even though it's this, you know, it's A minor, but just a different position, different, you know. It's just like, oh, it's got to be this voicing, you know, for this particular song, you know. I get it.
Yeah, because you hear certain things. It's like, you know, you hear like, okay, E flat, you know, and it's like, okay, well, Motown will probably play it. Like, let's see. You know, and that's it. And or you might play it, and it's different.
Right.
You know? It's just different. Let me see what he said. Let me meet you in Houston, Jimmy. Oh, thank you.
Fellas, I'm just watching the clock. We got about 4 minutes left. For our last question, Jimmy, I'd like to ask you, and this is something I ask all the guests that come through. Is there a quote or a mantra that you hold close to heart that maybe somebody shared with you that you think of during tough times or happy times? If so, what would that quote or mantra be?
One I would say for music would be the great James Jamerson from Motown. He told his son, if you don't feel it, don't play it. And at the end of the day, I would say, well, one thing I would learn is, like, in music is just like, play what you feel in your heart 100%. When you wake up and that's all you can think about and that's all you want to do that. If the music makes you happy, again, it doesn't have to be many styles, it can be one. And if it's just like you can sit here and play the same thing over again, you're like, this is the music I want to play. This is who I am 100%. Anything less than that, it's not the same. But go what is in your heart. Don't forget about what else is going out there. Go with who's your true self. You know, what's your true self? What music makes you groove? You know, if nobody was looking and there was nobody in the house but you, what do you play? What grooves you the hardest? You know?
Right.
And that could be any style of music, but what grooves you the most? And it, like Delight said, groove is in the heart. You know? So it's just like play what you feel 100% is you. You know, it doesn't have to be for anything else. Just do you. Because you're only here for a short time. Make it happen. Right.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Before we go, I want to give you gentlemen an opportunity to let us know how we can stay in touch with what's going on with you. Let us know if there's any new music coming out or any shows that we can come and see you at. Chris, I'll start with you.
Sure.
And then we'll close out with Jimmy.
Well, here on the Instagrams, CR Lujan. That's where you could find me. Me and Andre Cruz. Andre Cruz is basically like you call us the dynamic duo. So I guess he's my partner in crime fighting, I guess, or something. Yes, but we're doing a 5-day run at the beginning of May with the Sex Tones. And so we're going to be in Seattle, Portland, Bend, Reno, and Santa Cruz. That's May 10th through the 14th. So you'll be seeing us post about that quite a bit. And as far as music goes, I just put out a record on my label by the Heavy Sounds out of Chicago, and the record label is yeah, they're great. Lugnutbrandrecords.com. You can find the link in my bio and stuff. Me and Andre have a 45 coming out in May, where we did we're working on a covers LP, so it's a couple covers. Heart Full of Love by the Invincibles and Of All the Hearts by the Deceptions. So that's going to be coming out in May. And then we have the repress of The Real Thing, and then an instrumental version of The Real Thing on the way, as well as many other things.
I love that.
You can reach me here on Instagram at Jimmy Scratch James. Also True Loves at True Loves Band or TrueLovesBand.com. You mentioned Sex Tone, so shout out to Dan Weiss.
Indeed.
And the True Loves got some things cooking up. I know we're doing Bumbershoot. I know I'm not supposed to say this, but True Loves might be doing something outside of the U.S., but I won't say where. I won't say where. I'm not supposed to say, but we're supposed to this summer. I won't say yet. I see that, and we got other things. Plus, again, look out for that Coal Mine record with Tim Carmen and Adam Scone. What did I say, Andy? Adam Scone. Got some stuff I'm supposed to do. Timberfest. I got my own stage coming up in July, so I'm doing that with a few friends of mine. Some people you know, some you might not know, but we're doing that. And I'm just going with the flow, man. Like just going wherever life takes me.
That's fantastic. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for making time to be here tonight. Jimmy, you shared some awesome insights, gave us some great observations to get closer to the music that you create and understand really what's going on when you're on stage or when you're creating the music. Chris, fantastic questions, guys. Thanks, you so much for tonight. I want to thank everybody who tuned in for the full hour. We're going to have a stream up available afterwards. Waxvillain, Seattle, Washington.
Thanks.
We're out of here. See y'all. Have a good night.